Welcome to Commander's Comments. I am Harrison, and I would like us to introduce our Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief, Walter D. Donnie Kennedy.
Good afternoon, Moose, and good afternoon, fellow Confederates. It's good to be with y'all. This is Commander's Comment. And if you'll notice, the better-looking Kennedy twin is tonight hosting Commander's Comment. And we are here joined by probably the most unreconstructed Confederate in Tennessee, the Honorable Jason Boshers, Commander-in-Chief of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. Commander, it's good to see you.
It is great to see you, Brother Kennedy. And I will say, I'm not going to get into the discussion of who's the smart one, the better looking one. Let's just say that it's real good to see you too, young man.
Yeah, well, I will have to tell everyone, Ron sends his best wishes from Wyoming and Montana. He said that he misses us, but he does not miss the high humidity of South Louisiana. Take that, Charles LeRae.
Well, I bet he is having some decent weather up there in Wyoming.
Very decent weather. And Ron sent me a picture. I didn't have time to get it to Moose. In Wyoming, there was a display of Japanese American heritage, and it had very attractive young Japanese ladies in the kimonos, and they had a nice little display of pride in their heritage, et cetera, et cetera. Wouldn't it be nice if America would allow Confederate Americans to be proud of their heritage and celebrate their heritage? But of course, I reckon they're still mad because we fought a war with them. But wait a minute, didn't we fight a war with the Japanese? It must be my mistake. I must be overlooking something.
Well, facts just have a tendency to get in the way of a good story. That's all.
You're right. And like one Yankee told me one time when we were arguing, not debating, but arguing, he told me to quit bothering him with facts. His mind was made up already. So,
yes.
So yes, that's the case. Well, tonight we've got a full plate, Commander, and I want to get started since this is 4th of July holiday. Justin, we're still in that season. And I just want to remind all of our good friends that this is a celebration of America's great secession holiday. We, the 13 individual, separate and independent and sovereign colonies, which became states, they seceded from the mother country, their union with Great Britain, to form the 13 original states that formed the United States of America. This is a great reason to celebrate the 4th of July. Wouldn't you say so, Commander?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Once you study our history, and you hit this time of year, and July 2nd is a very special day. July 2nd special, 3rd is special, 4th is special. And when you start to learn our history, you start to really appreciate your ancestors, because those people were the ones that were willing to take that one step that started them toward liberty.
That's right.
And my love and respect for those people is through the roof.
That's because I've always said that our Confederate forefathers were merely emulating their colonial forefathers, and we as Americans should emulate both. So, and speaking of which, I've got a little bit of an email from Kevin Stone, the commander of the Army of Northern Virginia, and I believe also commander of the North Carolina Division. He sent a note, and I read over it, celebrating or congratulating some members of a local SCV camp in North Carolina. I believe it was in Salisbury, North Carolina, that had a great parade, and they gave out all kind of SCV items, including Confederate flags. And he said they were very well received. And the interesting thing to me that Commander Stone ended his comments, he noted and thanked the men who of the division for, quote, who pay your dues, make donations to Heritage Defense so we can support endeavors like this now and in the future, end quote. That was Commander Kevin Stone of North Carolina and commander of the Army of Northern Virginia. And I really appreciate that attitude. Now, I know we've had all kind of events sponsored by the Sons of Confederate Veterans during these holiday season, the 4th of July, but this one really got my attention, and I really appreciate Commander Stone and what he did there. So, Commander, I think that we ought to celebrate the 4th in a big, big way from now on.
Oh, we should. And I agree. And I want to thank all these people that worked in the Old North State that worked and made this happen. Folks, something like this, it just doesn't fall out of the sky. Somebody works behind the scenes. They're putting these things together. They're doing the planning. They're putting time into it, effort into it, money into it, all their valuable resources. And let's all face it, time is the most valuable resource of all of it out there. And it's something you're willing to dedicate all this time to make happen. And then I read the email, and they were handing out popsicles.
Yeah,
I mean, it is at a pray. I'm going, man, that's a wonderful idea. And and they were talking about how it made them feel when to get, because we all know how people talk about us, and we're not going to get, and they're going to mistreat you, and they're going to boo you. And I've been through all of that. I've been booed at, spit at, cussed at, but to have that outpouring. Right. And you're in this, and all this crowd is what it does to your insides.
You're right. And one thing that you mentioned there about the popsicles, or whatever they call it, little popsicles that you give out like that. We've got the doubloons at headquarters that we can give out. That's nice. But this is something, I think it shows somebody thinking outside of the box. And I've always talked about in the SCV, we got to get out of our comfort zone and outside of the box and look at what we can do a little bit different. Somebody came up with a good idea on the 4th of July. Let's give out popsicles. Who's going to hate a Confederate who's giving out a popsicle to a bunch of hot people in July? So that was really good. Congratulations to all the folks on that. Commander, before we go too far, you might want to run over your schedule. Let people know where is our Commander-in-Chief going to be in the next. I know where we're going to end up in Hot Springs, but between now and Hot Springs, are you just going to be sitting around the house twiddling your thumbs?
Oh, like I always do. I never get out. I never do anything. I never go anywhere. I'm actually very proud of what's going to be happening over the next couple of weeks leading up to the reunion. I'll be leaving in the morning to head to Picayune, Mississippi. The Gainesville Volunteer Camp number 373. Jack DuPont and that group of guys invited me down. They're celebrating, that camp's celebrating 28 years. Good. 28 years. Good. And here is the great part about it. They still have 5 founding members still alive and in that camp after 28 years. So to be able to go down and visit with them and talk to those 5 guys, this is a huge deal. I mean, it's just, and talking to him, he said, well, I know 28 is kind of an odd year. Why don't you wait till the 30th? And it's simply, it's just a simple thing of age, because some of these gentlemen are getting on up in years, and just looking forward to going down and visiting with them. Looking forward to that. And of course, so I'm going to be in Picayune, Mississippi on Saturday. Okay. And on Thursday, I get to do one of the coolest things. Children of the Confederacy, they're having an event in Columbia, South Carolina. And I have been asked to be there to say a few words. So to actually give a welcome or say a few words to the children of the Confederacy is you talking about doing my heart good. To be asked to do that, I am extremely honored. And I will be there a week from today. So I'm looking forward to that. And then after that, it is headed to a little place called Hot Springs, Arkansas. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it or not. So you, Mr. Kennedy, you have some things coming up?
Well, fortunately, I only have one major event coming up. I need to drive to a little old place called Mendenhall, Mississippi, to speak to the Simpson Fencible SCB camp in Mendenhall. Now, I was going to tell you, Picayune is not on the Gulf Coast, but it's not far from the Gulf Coast, in case anybody's wondering where Picayune, Mississippi is. Mendenhall is about 50 miles south of Jackson and probably about 40 miles north of Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And it has a special meaning to the Kennedys. This is Simpson County. Our maternal grandparents and mother and family came from Simpson County, and a lot of good of our relatives, Confederate veterans, are from Simpson County. So going to Mendenhall, which is the county seat of Simpson County, is a treat for us, and I'm looking forward to being with our friends there. And we've got a couple of local meetings here that I will be attending, and then Ron and myself and my wife, we hopefully be in Arkansas for the reunion, and we're looking for a good time with seeing everybody and having a great time there. So, barring any ill health issue in the family, we will definitely be there. Now, I'm saying that because I want to bring up something I noticed on one of the letters you sent to me. I believe Pat Godwin had an announcement to make about it. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that?
I will. Pat and Butch Godwin. So many of us know so much about them. Yeah. Selma, Alabama. They have their Forest birthday party. They do what they've done for the past 20 years. This one they were going to be having at the end of July. That was going to be their 21st. Butch has had some health issues. Not diving into it, but since it was already all over Facebook, he suffered a stroke, and I've seen Butch twice lately. Saw him at the Alabama Division reunion, and then I was fortunate enough he was at the Forest Boyhood Home at the homecoming that we had the third Saturday in June. And he looked good, and he was great as always. And Miss Pat is, I mean, she's just a rocket sled on rails. I mean, if we had 24 Pat Godwins, my stars, what would we have? And so my respect for them. I know them both. I've worked with them both. But let's keep Butch and Pat in your prayers. They're not going to be able to do the Forest homecoming, the Forest birthday celebration that they do at their place called Fort Dixie. They're not going to be able to do it this year, so that event has been canceled. But please keep Butch and Pat in your prayers.
Well, good. Thank you. And I appreciate that. And my heart goes out to them. Ron and I have the greatest admiration for all that they do, as well as we do for all Confederates out there. I'm going to tell you something. It's not the Kennedy twins. It's not the Commander-in-Chief. It's not the national headquarters. It's each and every member. Every member is so vitally important that, sometimes a few people who wear the gewgaws, we might get a pat on the back. Somebody, y'all are doing a great job. No, we're not. Our members are doing a great job, because as we've stressed over and over, the work of the SCB is done by the local camp. If the local camp is not busy promoting and defending our heritage, it will not happen. And the local camp is invigorated by good men in that camp, and also the ladies who assist so often. Commander, if you don't mind, on a little positive note here, I want to just brag a little bit about our Attorney General in Louisiana, Landry, and also the Attorney General in Missouri. Now, this does not affect directly the SCB, but it does indirectly. They filed a lawsuit against the federal government because the federal government was using the power of the government to really put the Quahitas on speech that they did not agree with. And they filed suit, and a judge, I forget his name, I can't remember, but anyway, a federal judge in the Western District of Louisiana limited and really barred the federal government from doing this. So in other words, the federal government can't go to social media and say, you really need to ban these people because their speech is improper, or it's false history, or false news, or whatever term they use for something they disagree with. And the federal judge, he really hit it hard. He said that the federal government was exercising in censorship by proxy, which means they were censoring things, but they were forcing companies in the social media outlet to do the censoring so they could say, oh, we don't censor, but it was censorship by proxy. And he said, no, and then the injunction was filed, you cannot do that. Now, we all know this will be appealed, but the already both attorney generals have already said, well, don't worry. If they appeal it, it's going straight to the Supreme Court. We're not going to stop. So here again, it's a positive thing because it begins the process of opening people's eyes to the fact that people that maybe some politically to the left of us disagree with, they do not have the right to shut us down. And this will go a long ways, I believe. And I felt like that was something positive we need to talk about and let people know what's going on. Now, another thing, Commander, and I'll get off my high horse here, but I did run across this recently, and this was on the 4th of July. I ran across an article from the AP that reported that there seems to be a continuous process of Americans separating themselves into blue states and into red states. And he said there's actually ended up going to be 2 Americas. And I thought, gee, that sounded like something that happened in 1861. And which is very interesting because Jefferson Davis, right before he was taken prisoner, he made the fact that, you know, things, the principle which we contended are bound to reassert themselves again, but in another time and another form. And I think this is exactly what is happening here. The world, or especially Americans, are slowly beginning to understand that, yes, the South was right in 1861, that if you cannot live peaceably with somebody, you need to separate. And this is happening. Whether or not that'll turn into a political or just a social separation, any way that keeps us happy, that I'm glad. But I just wanted to bring those 2 things out, Commander, because I think that's something that in the future is going to create a lot of benefit for us.
Yes, sir. And I'm very glad for you to bring and talk about this. First of all, the First Amendment, we all talk about the Second Amendment, but nobody ever thought that the First Amendment would come under attack. And the First Amendment is coming under attack, and it has been coming under attack. And I think that the wording on this, by proxy, I think those 2 words are speaking very loudly. Okay. Well, you're doing it indirectly. You're telling somebody else to go do it, somebody who you can control. And then I think things like that, like these continued violations, Second Amendment is going to be under attack. It's going to stay under attack. You know, First Amendment now is heavily under attack. All of this leads to the point that you just talked about with this AP poll. All of a sudden, it becomes a conscious effort. People are consciously making an effort to leave a red state and go to a blue state. They're consciously doing it. Tennessee, we have more Californians and West Coast people moving here. And, you know, when you talk to them, the thing you ask of them is, you know, don't bring West Coast with you. And that's what they say. Well, we moved here to get out of that. So there's a conscious effort to shift that. Where it helps is if they, you know, come to Tennessee and become Tennesseans.
Right.
If they come to Tennessee and stay Californians and try to change Tennessee to California, we just went backwards.
Commander, this is where the Sons of Confederate Veterans, this is where we fit in, because it's our job to take our narrative, our concept of our history, our heritage, our culture, and not beat somebody over the head with, but share it with other people. Let them understand who we are. invite them to your meetings. Let them hear you and talk to you. Be friendly with them. Open up your Southern hospitality and be hospitable to these people and demonstrate to them that you won't welcome them and you want them to become part of our society and not us to become California. And it's left up to us. And one of the main things we can do in the SCV is to continue to do these projects where we're getting the information out, whether it's in newspapers like Epic Times, or if it's just radio ads, if it's our videos, whatever, to get the message out to John Q. Public. And that's one of the things that we need to do.
Yes. And let's touch on something you talked about at the very beginning. A 4th of July parade where they were giving out popsicles. Yeah. Okay, how much goodwill does that buy you in the community? How many people are going, okay, they were the sons of Confederate veterans? I've never heard of them. Mm-hmm. You know, I think I might have a ancestor. Right. Seems like my grandmother told me that, you know, that's how all of this does.
You're right.
Well, Commander, yes, go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry, but did you remember I told you the story of coming back from one event, and I was around Tuscaloosa, Alabama, doing about 83 miles an hour on the interstate, and all of a sudden I look up, and it was about 4 o'clock in the morning, but I was getting to Louisiana, and all of a sudden the back end of my car lit up with blue lights, and I looked down at my speed arm, and I was doing 85, I think. But I said, oh, I wonder what he wants, you know. And I pulled over the side of the road, turned my dome lights on, rolled down the passenger side window, kept my hands on the steering wheel. And this young police officer came up to my window. And, of course, he's looking all around and wanting to know who I was, what I was doing, why was I speeding. And I told him, I said, well, I'm just left a Sons of Confederate Veterans meeting. I was really wanting to get home, and I just got a heavy foot. I said, you caught me? That's what I did. And he said, Sons of Confederate Veterans, you know, and this is about a 38, 40-year-old man. He leaned over into the car and we proceeded to talk about Confederate heritage. He was so proud of his great-great-grandfather. He said, I think it was my great-great-grandfather. He didn't even know. He said, but the family always talked about him being a Confederate soldier. He said, man, he said, and I can't stand it when people want to tear down our monuments, he said. Mm-hmm. And I asked him, I said, well, are you a member of the Sons of Confederate? He said, I don't know anything about it. I said, well, look, I got a card right here. All you got to do is give me a call and I'll tell you all about it. And anyway, he was very pleased. He said, well, listen, Mr. Kennedy, you take your time, get back to Louisiana. I didn't get a ticket, and we got a prospective member in Alabama. But that proves that people are out there. All we've got to do is get our message in front of them. The museum is part of this project. Our ads that we run all the time and trying to get local camps to do likewise. This is how we get our message out, and this is how we attract not only people from California and the West Coast and other places, but also local citizens. Yes. Also.
Yeah, you're right. And if you don't mind, while you were talking about it and you mentioned the ads and the museum, first of all, I'm glad you did not get a ticket. And yes, you and I had been traveling together, you know, and you dropped me off and you headed home. And then just a few days later, I ended up traveling up to Virginia with your brother. So I had Kennedy's for the week.
Oh, and bless your heart.
Actually, it was an interesting time and some very good conversations. And you know, all we have to do is just show people who we really are, and be proud of our heritage. You know, and I say this, and I do mean this. I don't know what heaven's going to be like. But I do believe that when I get to heaven and my Confederate ancestor is there, I have never seen a picture of him. I'm named after him. I've never seen a picture of him. You know, I just know of his service. And I do believe that even though we've never seen each other, within a moment we'll know each other.
Oh, yes.
And I want him to be as proud of me as I am of him. You know, I went and I visited my dad, who I lost back in December. And my dad is buried about 40 yards from where he is. Yeah. And I'm going to be buried down there by my dad. So I'm going to be buried 40 yards from my Confederate ancestor. And, that is honorable to me.
It is. And it's so interesting when I'm talking to Northerners about the war. To them, it's an esoteric academic discussion at best. At worst, just a dirty political comment to be made. But then I remind them, I said, down south, it's not unusual to go to a cemetery and find people being buried within a few feet or yards from their Confederate ancestors. I said, this is family to us. I said, to you, it's just an academic or political ploy. To us, it's family. When you attack the Robert E. Lee, Jefferson Davis, or just any Confederate soldier, you're attacking our family. And so many people up north, they don't understand that because they don't have the deep roots in land and family like we do down south. So that is something to remember. Commander, if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on in the museum right now? Because I know people will know, are we busy or getting any traffic or what's going on there?
Yes, sir. I'll be happy to talk about that. Then after I talk about that, why don't you talk about the ads and everything and how all that's panning out. I'm very fortunate in the fact that I live 12 miles from Elm Springs, and I was very fortunate that today I do help out a lot up there on Thursdays. I was giving tours within the home. Throughout the year so far, we have had couples, mostly older retired couples, coming through. Now that we've gotten into the summer, we're having families come. And today I gave tours of the home to 3 different families. And the ages are varying from, infants all the way up to 15, 16 years old. And it's surprising when you're talking about the history, how interested a lot of I'm going to call them teenagers, young teenagers, 11, 12, 13, 14 range, all of those that I have met over the years so far that have been given the tour, how really interested that they are. And, I was doing a tour of the home, and this is probably getting a little bit more detailed than what anybody wants to hear, but I'm doing a tour of the home, and I'm standing in the ladies' parlor, and I had talked about the dining room, and they had a dinner party, and the lady, young girl, I called her a lady. She's young lady. I'm going to guess 14, 15 years old. She goes, well, what are and I said, we had a dinner party. So when they finished supper, they came to the ladies' parlor. The men stayed in the dining room, and the ladies come into the ladies' parlor, and they shut the door. And when they shut the door, that was the signal for the men to get up and go to the men's parlor. So, and then supper, she goes, why do y'all call it supper? And I go, it's religious significant. Christ's Last Supper. It was the last meal of the day. And it was just like a light bulb went off in her. She goes, nobody has ever told me. Nobody's ever explained it. Nobody. And I'm going, okay, this is, and for the rest of it, she's having conversations. She's asking questions. So there are younger people out there. Now, I know somebody came through the other day and he was talking about, it was a 45-year-old dad. And he was talking about his 20-something-year-old son. And he's going, there's no way he would ever come and do this. He thinks this is, a waste of time, silly, whatever you want to call it. He's just not. And he said, but he's that way about everything. He said, and been around him and his friends, he said, they're almost like a lost generation. He said, I don't know what they're going to do when they get to be disgruntled 40-year-olds and life has really hit them hard. He said, they're complaining, when they're 20 and I'm paying for them to go in school. What are they going to do when they're 40 and they have a job, a wife, a house payment, a car payment, kids, so, but, and people will say, well, what about the younger generation? The ones I've had come in lately that toured the home, very much so, very interested, asking questions, wanting to know what this meant, that meant. And then we go and you see them inside the museum. now the QR codes are up in the museum, and you'll see everybody's got their phone out, and they're just going to town with their phone, reading the QR codes. And I've had several questions lately. Well, I've never heard of this. This can't be right. This can't be right. Where did you get this information? And they show them at the bottom, Library of Congress. So, you can go to the Library of Congress website and look this up, and they find out, and they found that it is true. And they go, well, the Library of Congress says it's this. But what I learned in school said this. And it's this different thing. I said, well, it's just one of those things where they tell you to do one thing while they go and they do something else.
Yeah.
I said, it's part of that part where the victors, they get to tell the stories. And it is just that simple. But we've got this museum. However, we have this museum. And this museum is starting to tell the story. And it is telling the story very well. Jimmy Hill, Robert Gilson, all these guys that have come in that have worked so hard on this museum, they've done an absolutely fantastic job. It is paying off. People are paying attention to it. They are reading. They are learning. That we've had to add benches in there so people would have a place to sit so they can sit and read. The average time walking through was at one time 30, 45 minutes. It's an hour, 2 hours, or even longer. Every now and then you get some guy in there that would be really nerdy like me, who would go in there and have to read everything on there. And all of a sudden, I've been in there 3 to 4 hours. And we have had a few people that have done that. So the purpose of the museum, when it was done, we got to think of when it was originally thought about. And, this was in 2009. And it was when we were facing all of these things that had happened against us. And we said, we need to do something here to protect our history and to preserve our history and to be able to tell our story. And this is turned into Take Back Our Narrative. This is turned into, let's tell the truth, the complete truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And that's all that we have done within the museum. And because of that, people are coming in and they're saying, I never knew this. I have never heard this. So we are preserving the artifacts. You can come there, you can see the artifacts. They're being preserved and they're on display. The most important thing that we're doing is education, education, education. And people are, sir?
It's education, but it's more than that. It's inspiration. I tell you, you are inspiring. The artifacts are just something to get them in there to look and to read and to learn. And you hit the nail on the head. Yes, it's education, but it's education pointing them toward a purpose. And, I'm just so proud of that museum. And I know we got a long way to go on it, but we are doing so many positive things with not only the museum, but the other things we're doing. So,
and we are, and I don't want people to ever get this conception that the museum's ever going to be done. The museum will never be done. You could have everything completely paid for. Your artifacts are going well. You've got a great HVAC system. Everything's running well, but you're still going to be working on it. You're still going to be getting artifacts. You're still going to put things in rotation. The something like this, there never comes a time with it that you stop. Right. You're all the time going to be working on it, because us educating the world on our Confederate ancestry can never stop. It can never stay still. It can never grow moldy. It is going to have to be polished off and talked about every day. And that's what the museum is doing. And as far as people coming, they're coming.
What about some of the events you got coming up for the museum?
Okay. What we can do is, first of all,
you're still with us.
Okay. Wow. I don't know what happened here. Everything just went black on this end.
You're having one of those Louisiana thunderstorms, I believe.
Yes, sir. I believe we are. Everything just went black. Everything flashed.
Hey,
okay.
Commander, just as long as you don't throw us another tornado now. We don't want to watch you run for another tornado.
Oh, yeah, you were on that night that happened. In the middle of a GEC Zoom meeting, all of a sudden sirens started going off and we had tornadoes. Well, we'll talk a little bit. First of all, we have an event coming up at the museum this coming weekend. Not this coming weekend. I'm sorry, July 29th. That is the cruise in that we're having. July 29th, the Rebel Rouser cruise in. Come on out. This was a great event last year. It was probably one of our better events. We draw a lot of the crowd that, well, who are you? Yeah. You know, they're just into the cars. And all of a sudden they come there and they have a good time. So that's going to be on July 29th. Now
tell the folks what the cruise in is composed of. Somebody may not have any idea what cruise in, what it is.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, these are all Saturdays that the museum's going to be open. One it is, you'll have classic cars, classic trucks, street rides, Beautiful. Yeah, just, somebody that has decided to build a Batmobile in their basement and they want to take and drive it out somewhere. And all it is they'll bring the car out and they'll, put it on display and they'll hang around and talk to a whole lot of other like-minded people like we have to do. We get around each other like-minded and we'll talk about, they're talking to their like-minded friends as well. And they'll hang out all day. They'll go into the museum. The house will be open for tours. So they're going to come there. There's going to be food there. We're having food vendors, so nobody has to leave. Last year we had people leaving at lunch, and we thought, well, sometimes these things need to last a little longer. So we're going to have food there, and it's just going to be. This is going to be a good time. I forget how many cars we had last year, but it's just a bunch of people hanging around, and they're going to be hanging around at the museum. And I think that's a great thing.
It is.
Yes. August the 19th, we're having a night at the museum. That's where a typical thing where the museum's going to come alive. We're going to have people portraying different people inside the museum. So you'll be able to come, do a tour of the museum and, have it come to life. September 9th, the museum will be open on that Saturday. October the 7th, it'll be open. That is also our GEC meeting. November 11th, that is Veterans Day, and the veterans are admitted for free on that Saturday. So come on out on that day. And the first weekend in December is our Christmas home tour. So December 2nd, the home is going to be open on that weekend. So you can come on out and, tour. But there's going to be a lot of homes on tour. Yeah. But you can come out. The museum will be open if you just wanted to come see the museum. So, yes, sir.
And that's great. And what were the Saturdays, again, that the museum be open, be the 9th, September the 9th and October the 7th? Is there any other Saturday? Is the 11th? Is that on a Saturday?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The 11th and the 2nd are all on Saturdays. Oh, July 29th, August 19th, September 9th, October 7th, November 11th, and December 2nd. They're all on Saturdays that are open.
Yeah. So if any of our members say, I can't come on weekdays, I need to be there on a Saturday, here's your chance. Come out on one of these Saturdays and you'll have a special event going on top of that. And that the classic automobiles, if you've never really seen, and a lot of people my age, we like to go see the cars that we grew up with and do photo ops with them. So, all you have to do is just ask the owner, may I stand in front? And 9/10 of the time, they're just delighted for you because, like myself, I'll ask questions about the car because I grew up in that age of the 50s and 60s and early 70s. When automobiles were real automobiles, and you could tell a Ford from a Chevrolet, from a Chrysler, on down the line. Nowadays, they all look like they're poured out of the same cracker box. I'm sorry.
They do. You actually have to look at the symbol to see what it is. They don't even show the names now. They just have a symbol.
Well, the symbols now are beginning to look so much alike, you can't tell which car. Sometimes a Hyundai and a Honda, I get confused, and I own both, so but I go, which one is that? So, Commander, if you don't mind, I want to just pump Rick Rebels and his Roku.
Oh, yes, please do. He's doing some great stuff. Rick is.
Exactly. If anybody has Roku TV, please check out Rick Rebels. It's AME TV channel, and he does History Highway. And he's done a couple of episodes of History Highway where he's looking at our museum, and that is still posted on there. You can go pick it up, and you can also see live shows that Rick does. Rick is running his channel is picked up by Roku anywhere in the nation. Anybody's got Roku, they can go down to AME TV and click on that, and his channel will open up. So potentially has nationwide memberships now, viewers. But we know that everybody doesn't have Roku and everybody doesn't go to AME, but they will if we start telling them about it. Also, Rick does a 2-minute ad for the Confederate Museum, the National Confederate Museum, the one you see Forrest Dawes talking about, the walls could talk. Great ad. I wished I'd written the ad, but someone far smarter than me wrote that ad, and it is a great ad, and it tells our story in such a passionate and simple way that you cannot leave that hating the South. So this is getting coverage all across the nation, and also on several local small TV stations in Georgia and Alabama and different places like that. So we're really supporting. Please support Rick Rebels. Now, Rick came to Natchez this past week, and he and I did 2 programs. We filmed 2 programs in Natchez, Mississippi that will be on his channel. And again, it's positive information about the South. We did one program about the Devil's Punch Bowl. Commander, have you ever heard of the Devil's Punch Bowl in Natchez? That is where many of the free slaves was herded into an area and literally starved to death by the Confederates. No, that was the Yankees. I'm sorry, I made a mistake there. And so anyway, we did a story on that, and then we also did a story on William Johnson, a free man of color who was a business owner. He was a plantation owner. He was a slave owner. He was a hunter. He was well equipped with weapons, a colored man in Mississippi prior to the war, owning weapons. Can you imagine that? That goes against the narrative that we've all been taught to believe. And he was very literate. He left a massive journal of his activities in Natchez, Mississippi. And it's been annotated and published by Louisiana Press. And it's a thick, it's not a little simple, it's a thick journal. And he talks about everything from raising crops to hunting to political activity in and around Natchez. And remember, Natchez, Mississippi was a hotbed of the Whig plantation owners. And he was in line with those people because he himself was a plantation owner. Jason, his home, his antebellum home is in downtown Natchez. It wasn't situated over in some black ghetto, but in downtown Natchez. And right behind his house are 2 slave quarters. Now, were they made out of mud and thatch? No, they were brick with a brick floor. My family, my grandfather, who was born in 1872, when he and his wife, my grandmother, got married, they lived in a log cabin with a dirt floor. But this free man of color, he owned a nice mansion, and his slaves that worked in his house had nice brick quarters, and they had chimneys on each end of the quarters. A 2-chimney house back then was something else. So anyway, Rick and I have done that, and that will be posted hopefully by the end of the year. and we'll let you know about that, because all we're trying to do is get a positive picture of the South, a view that people have not heard. And with these programs that run, you're going to hear the commercial for the SCV, for the National Confederate Museum. And we're also talking to them about running some ads for memberships in the Sons of Confederate Veterans, either as of a descendant of a Confederate veteran or as a friend of the SCV. We'll go all the way around the world. So that is two of the things that we have, that Rick and I have been doing, and I've been working on, and I'm looking forward to continuing that process. So we've got a lot going on. Commander, do you want me to say anything about our Epic Time effort as far as advertising? I can kind of
I do, and I'm going to tell you why. Because these ads are working. The Epic Times ads are working. The stuff and the information that is getting out there, it is working. We need to let people know that we're doing things, and the things that we're doing are working. And so if you would please talk about it.
Yeah, well, we ran in April a month's worth of ads, quarter-page ads in the Epic Times, and those have paid dividends. We're in the process now of running some ads or getting things lined up. Hopefully they'll be in the works by the time the convention, the reunion hits, in other smaller journals. But the Epic Time is an expensive ad. So anybody wants to donate to heritage promotion, that's where your money is going. It's going to promote our heritage, a positive image of the South. Put your dollars in. Ante up. Don't just say, hey, that's a good thing, I'm for you. Say, hey, that's a good thing, I'm for you, and here's $5, here's $20, here's $5,000, whatever you got. So we appreciate that. But these ads will continue. Now, one of the things that we have going, and I'm going to just quickly mention this, is that we did a national survey. Everybody should hopefully know that we did a national survey on how Americans in general feel about Southern heritage. And basically 60% of Americans, not just Southerners, but Americans, have more of a positive view of Southern heritage than a negative view. We did that. And then we turned around and polled Southern Republicans and moderate Democrat voters. And how do you feel about Southern heritage? And anywhere from 80 to 95% come back very positive view of Southern heritage. Now, there's some that's kind of on the fence, and then there's very, very few who have negative view. Now, these polls are good for us to talk about. It makes us feel good. But until we get this message out to the local elected officials, both in Congress and in your state legislature, in your county courthouse, all throughout the South, until we get this information out, it really didn't. We wasted our money. We need to let those people out there who are in elected positions, who are basically conservative or moderate, let them know this is how your constituency feels about Southern heritage. So the next time BLM comes along and says, yank down that Confederate monument, you better remember that 85% of your voters believe that monument ought to stay. So if we can get that done both nationally, this helps us to protect and promote our Arlington effort to keep our monument in Arlington. Get it done in the state legislature. That helps us when we've got our various issues with the state legislators. They will know who the SCV is. They'll know that our people have the right view of history, and we have 80 to 90% of the people on our side. So you better not vote against us. You better vote for our issues and not with the BLM and Antifa folks. Now, it cannot be done if the local camp. What did we say at the beginning of the show? If it's not done at the local level, at the camp level, it will not get done. National can provide you a lot of tools. And I'm going to ask Commander Boshers to tell us a little bit about the one click that we can give. It's a tool that we can give you at the local level so that you can easily send this message to our congressmen and your local state representatives. And we've got more, probably between now and the convention, we'll have more information coming out about this and how we're going to ask the local camps, the divisions to get active to putting this information into the hands of local elected officials. That's including your sheriffs, your county commissioners, your dog catcher, your judges. If you have judges that are elected in your state, some states elect, some states appoint, but if you've got judges who are elected, be sure those judges know how people feel about Southern heritage, because those judges will be the ones who'll be making a decision whether that monument stays or goes. So we've got to do this. And using our one-click politics method is one of the ways that we can help the local people at the local camp to get this message out. Commander Boshers, can you tell us just a little bit, just an overview of the one-click, what it can do for us?
Oh, yes, sir. I'll be more than happy to. And the words you've said are true. We can do this poll, but if we don't share it and get the word out, all we're doing is making ourselves feel better. But we haven't really accomplished anything. The point of doing something like this, getting the results of it, and then putting them to useful practice. And, this is going to take the local camps to do this. The local camps, you are the spine. You are the backbone of this organization. This is a grassroots organization. It starts at the camp level and it goes all the way up. So you're going to, I hate to say this, but you're going to have to do the lion's work, the lion's share of the work. It is just one of the things that all of us are going to have to do. Not just you, all of us are going to have to do. Now, as far as the one-click politics go, if you're not a member of if you're not on the Telegraph, you need to get on the Telegraph.
Please.
Because you'll need to get on the Telegraph. And if you need to, just send a email to membership@scv.org and tell them you want on the Telegraph. Give them your name, your member number, and they will put you on the Telegraph. And what you'll do is when something comes out from GHQ, General Headquarters, you will get an email. And this email, we did one not too long ago, in which we were going to contact Mike Rogers, who was the head of the committee that was looking at Arlington. And I forget that for a reason, I didn't write it down, so I just drew a blank on his title. But he's the chairman of some committee. And we sent something out, and I know I just spoke with it a few days ago. And we sent the email out, and we had 2,300 people, over 2,300 people, actually step through and send an email to Mike Rogers, and it was going strictly to him. Now, here's the whole thing about this. We have 29,000 members in the SCV. We only have about 15,000 email addresses. So, you're going to give us your email address so you're able to get these and get them out. Now, 2,300, it's not 10%, is it? Now, what if we were to have 10, 20, 30% participation? And I just saw somebody pop up with a question saying, can Friends of the SCV get the Telegraph too? Yes. You just tell them who you are associated with. If you're a member of if you're Friends, they already have your information. If you're a member of the UDC, you can join the Friends of the SCV and get in that way. We need more people participating. 2,300 is a very good number. And I was really happy with that. And it took off like a gangbuster. There's all of these studies that have been done. And they said between on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, between 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock is the most amount of time, is the time most people are on social media. So that was the reason why we're kicking a lot of this stuff off, even though you're getting the email out, where you're trying to get it out to you in the middle of the day. So when you'll see the email, you'll go ahead and click on it. We had over 700 responses in less than an hour, and that was fantastic. Yeah. So I would like for, this one click, it's a wonderful tool. We can send it to one person. We can send it just to Mike Rogers. We can send it to the Senate. We can send it to Republicans. We can send it to Democrats. We can send it to the House. If, you can drill all the way down to the local level. If you need to send something to whatever town you're living in, I'm going to be in Picayune this coming weekend, so I'm going to pick on Picayune, and not meaning to pick on them, but let's just say the people in Picayune say, I need to be able to contact my city council. Well, if you will give me their email addresses, I can actually type their email addresses in and send it directly to them. Now, a lot of the local stuff changes pretty often, and it's drilled all the way down to that. But the state level, and even at some of the county levels and a lot of your major states, all of that's on there as well. But when you start getting down to city officials, major cities, they have them, but some of the smaller cities, they don't. But if you can get their email addresses, and we can target them and one-click politics to where they receive an email. And we can word this however we need to. We can ask them to do something to support this. We could ask them to defund that. You tell us what you want in the wording, what you need it to say. And the best thing to do is we have a lot of legal people around and people who are very good at writing this stuff up. So, we'll contact some of them and say, this is the legalese of what we need saying. And you can't make a Gone with the Wind on this. You have to hit. You make this thing 3 sentences, 5 sentences, bam, bam, bam. Yeah. Because if you sit down at your desk and all of a sudden you had 2,300 emails, you're just going to go click, 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 click. And the thing is, with this product, is we can go through and we can actually rotate the message. We can provide up to 10 different messages on this to where the message would change and also the heading would change. So they don't sit there and see 2,300 that all say the same thing and delete them, and it will randomly change all of those. This is turning out to be a very good little product. We had good luck with it. We have another one that we're working to get out, and then we're going to work on getting the one out on the poll, because getting the poll out this way is going to be huge. So,
yeah. One of the things that I'd like to emphasize, I'm not a computer geek at all. I'm, 75 years old. I'm lucky to be able to be on this Zoom meeting tonight. But one click is so simple. You get the form. All you have to do is put your email in, and it populates, it puts all the information in for you. And if you read the message, yes, I like this message. And then you click down here, I sign this, send. That's it. You don't have to sit there and figure out, what is my representative's email address? Yeah. All that is figured out. Everything is done. All you got to do is put your zip code in, click, sign, and send. That's it. And, this costs the SCV money. And again, it's a tool that we can provide to help the local members, the local camps, the members at large, to get in contact with their representative. Until we put the heat on those people, they will not see the light. And I love that's what President Ronald Reagan used to say, if they don't see the light, it's because you haven't put enough heat on them. If you put enough heat on a politician, he'll see the light. And this is just one way to do it. Commander, we're running really close to the limits. I did want to say something. Dues are they should be coming in now. I understand they may be a little bit slow in coming in. We need to encourage everybody to get those dues in. So we need to keep this organization funded and going. So please.
Well, and I can give some word on some of that. The MRS system was late getting out because they had a problem getting envelopes. So the MRS system was about a month later going out. So we're running about a month late. The problem we're having is they haven't been coming in very well. I was with Adam today. We had a conversation about it. Generally, they have been coming in by this time, coming in pretty steady. And I heard somebody say up there the other day that they'll hope that they get some good stuff in the mail. So they know that they're not being sent in.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Camp commanders, brigade commanders, division commanders. We need your assistance. Let's get this going. We've got to keep this organization funded and moving forward. The enemy will not let up just because we're tired. I'm sorry. I'm old and tired, but I'm not defeated yet. And I'm going to keep fighting this fight, but I can't do it by myself, and you can't do it by yourself. For the end of it, we do it together. This is something that we're working together on. Do you want to do a quick update on the national reunion? Is anything that you need to tell us about that, Commander?
Oh, well, it will. Before we step into that, I want to remind somebody of one thing. We're in storm season. As Mr. Kennedy talked about, we have Tennessee's been eat up with storms. Mississippi and Louisiana, all of them are getting eat up. Y'all be careful out there. But also remember that we have the fund that, in case something, somebody, takes a tornado hit or something like that, they can go to the SCV relief fund and get relief. But that is us contributing to that fund. And now that we're in storm season, y'all be mindful of that. You have a few extra bucks, send money to the SCV relief fund. So it's brother helping brother.
It's after all, we are a band of brothers, and that's serious. That is serious as can be.
Yes, sir. And then we're gonna talk about the national reunion, July 19th through the 22nd in Hot Springs. Has everybody read their Confederate Veteran magazine? Now, it looks like this issue of the Confederate Veteran magazine, the one that just come out, it's running behind. HQ just got theirs last week, and they should have gotten them at least a week before. So it looks like the Confederate Veterans running about a week late. So maybe you'll start seeing them this coming week. But you have these three amendments that, and they're on the back pages of the Confederate Veteran magazine. So you know that we're going to have to be talking about that. I have visited with several divisions. And I want to thank the Alabama division, and I want to thank Texas division for the way they have stepped up and what they will be presenting. I am very, very proud of these men. I am very proud of the men in these divisions, and I want to thank the Alabama division and the Texas division ahead of time. But make sure that you come to the reunion so you can be part of the festivities. First of all, it's Hot Springs, which is just a tourist destination to begin with. And then we have the business session that is going to be going on. You're going to get updates. You think you get a lot of updates here on Commander's comments. Right now, Thursday, I've contacted a lot of people, and you'll look at our standing orders. We have 16 different committees. I've talked to a lot of these committee members, committee chairmen, and they're going to, on Thursday, they're going to get up and they're going to say a few words about these committees, because you need to be knowing what the purpose of these committees are and what they're working on and what they're doing. So, come to the reunion and you'll be able to see all of this. And then we're going to be voting on the 2025 reunion, which they're talking about in Texas. So you want your opinion to be known about that? Come on, hear the presentation. Michael Hurley is going to be making the presentation on that, and they're going to be talking about us having the 2025 reunion in Texas. Now, I'm going to stop right there because we need to talk to somebody about getting the 2026, because right now we're a year behind. We should have already voted on the 25, and this year we're voting on the 26. So this year we're voting on the 25, but we got to get number 2026 reunion in the bag. It was originally talked about going to New Bern, North Carolina. Haven't heard a lot of other information about that. That would be very good. But we have got to get 2026 rolling and can it get it in the bag. So you're going to hear me talking quite a lot about that. So you're going to hear from all the committees. You're going to, have the votes on the amendments. You're going to be hearing all the business. We're going to be talking about the benches, the bricks, the pavers, Forest Last Ride. We're going to have to pass a budget. There's all of these things that we're going to have to be talking about. So if you really want to know what's going on with the national reunion, you got to come to the reunion. If you really want to know what's going on at national, you come to the reunion. You'll get pretty much a rundown of everything.
And you're going to see a lot of good vendors there also. I understand Dr. Sandy Mitchum will be there, my good friend and camp commander, with a bunch of his books. So y'all come on out and see. I'm sure you're going to find all kind of things to look at and to see. Commander, right quick, I want to get a heads up to J.C. Hanna and his effort. The ATM will be having a workshop August the 12th in Texarkana, Texas. Now, these workshops is one of the places you can go. We can sit down in small groups or large groups, and we can talk about the one click. We can literally bring it up and show, look, this is how simple it is, and this is how you can do it. And this is one of the things we'll be discussing at the ATM meeting, I'm sure. Every Army needs to have a meeting like unto this, where we can learn the nuts and bolts of how to operate some of this equipment, new age 21st century technology that was not around in the 19th century and the 20th century. Commander, do you have anything else pressing on your agenda? Because I see we're almost 10 minutes over.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
To pull the plug on us in midstream here.
I'm just going to go ahead and give a heads up. There's two things I'm heavily going to push as we move on. One of them is Friends of the SCV. We need to be getting a lot more people into the Friends of the SCV. This is a good thing for us to do. Then just look at the future of that. And then the cadet program. These are the two things that, as we move on into the next year, we really need to get a lot more people into the Friends of the SCV because not everybody does have a Confederate ancestor, but there are a lot of people that are Confederate minded, that are Southern minded. So we're taking Friends of the SCV applications and leaving them out at the museum, hoping that people will pick them up. And if they don't have a Confederate ancestor, well, we'll find them. I know J.C. Hanna, David Daniels, Harold Bowden. A lot of these guys are just so good at being able to find them. But if they can't, they can still join the Friends. Good. And that the Friends needs to be a big number, especially the fact that 60% of the population agrees with us. 60% of the population nationwide. The Friends of the SCV should be as big as the SCV. Exactly. And so that number, you're going to see me pushing it a lot. And the cadet program, we're just missing out on our future. Yeah. What we have had and what we're finding out is we have grandfathers that are signing up their grandsons. And then when, the grandson turns 12, if the grandfather's still around, then he becomes a member. If the grandfather is not around,
we lose him.
So that tells me that there is a drop off between one critical step in there, the dad. So if the granddad passes before the grandson turns 12 and it ends, where's the dad in all of this? Yeah. So I think that this cadet program is something that we really need to be pushing, because I'm seeing a lot of young people this summer, and it's short. I know we're just into July, but they've come through the museum and they're interested in what is going on. Now, we might talk about this lost generation, but there's a generation out there that's coming through that is not lost. And, we need to push the cadet program. We need to push the Friends program, because this is something, the Friends, anybody can join. Yeah. Anybody can. So I think that that's about my words for the day. I'm looking forward to going to being in Picayune this coming weekend. I'm looking forward to being with the children of the Confederacy on this time next week. I'm going to be very excited to be there. And then we're heading to Hot Springs.
And the Kennedys I know this Kennedy will be in Mendenhall, and hopefully Ron will be back from out west, Montana and Wyoming. And matter of fact, I'm sure he visited the Battle of the Little Bighorn. He usually goes there and pay homage to the people who finally put an end to Custer. So the man who was responsible for killing one of the finest cavalry leader in America, Jeb Stuart. So I always felt like the Indians out there were our allies by default, if nothing else. So, Commander, with that said, before I get on another soapbox, I'm going to just say good night to our fellow Confederates. Thank you, Commander, for being on with us. And thank you, folks, for allowing us into your homes and being part of this great American heritage, which is Southern heritage. So with that, Moose, we're going to pitch the football back to you. Being from Ole Miss, you'll probably fumble it.